Leading up to James Gunn's Superman, I've been creating video essays on his DCEU trilogy, starting off with Man of Steel, a film that I enjoyed but was polarizing at the time it was released. This film that we're discussing today was twice as polarizing and extremely bold. It's been a common trend to hate this film since its release back in 2016, but as you all know, I don't follow trends on this channel and formulate my own opinions. Though I can't say this film is absolutely amazing, it has amazing elements throughout the film and was never really a bad film to begin with. The story. And yes, we're discussing the Ultimate Edition of the film since it's more of a complete vision and story compared to the theatrical cut.
Everybody got that?
It's been 18 months since Superman's climactic battle against General Zod within Metropolis. Bruce Wayne, who had been operating as the masked vigilante of Batman for over 2 decades, was within the destruction and has viewed Superman as a potential threat to the planet. Clark Kent begins to take notice of the Batman's activities in Gotham and begins to investigate him. Bruce Wayne attends Lex Luthor's party to obtain information on the whereabouts of a mineral capable of harming Superman, kryptonite. Here we encounter Wonder Woman and has his first run-in with the Man of Steel as Clark Kent. As the tension increases between these two heroes, Lex Luthor orchestrates a bombing at a Senate hearing for Superman, further manipulating Batman into confrontation with the Man of Steel. As further motivation for the clash, Martha Kent, Superman's adoptive mother, is kidnapped as persuasion for the Man of Steel to battle Batman to the death. Superman tries to reason with Batman but is led to fight regardless, with Batman trying to kill him with a kryptonite spear. Superman appeals to Batman's humanity with his mother's name, Martha Kent, causing PTSD attack within the Caped Crusader and allowing reasoning to enter his thick bat brain. Batman saves Martha Kent while Superman battles a creation that Lex Luthor has created while the two were clashing, Doomsday. Now it's up to Batman, Superman, and Wonder Woman to team up while Clark sacrifices himself to take down this monster. It's alluded to at the end of the film that an invasion is on its way to Earth and that Superman might still be alive. Anticipation and expectation. When we talk about the greatest superhero movie trailers of all time, we often think of Marvel, Avengers Infinity War, Endgame, No Way Home, Spider-Man, etc. But the hype was unbelievable when the first teaser trailer for this film was released.
Tell me, do you bleed? You will.
The atmosphere, the look, and the first time we'd ever get to see these two characters on the big screen together. This was looking to be the greatest superhero movie of all time. That was until concern rose with the second trailer for this movie. Sadly, this concern would last into the release date of the film. Expectations for the film was so high that the film could never meet such anticipation. March 26, 2016, Batman vs Superman would hit theaters and was ridiculed upon release. The film was stated to have a sloppy story, unclear character motivations, unsubtle setup for future projects in the future, and being too dark and grim for any sense of entertainment. It also didn't help that the film was released closely to Civil War, which was an overall more fun and well-received film. However, was the film truly a bad movie? Not at all. Now, there are bad elements throughout, and we'll discuss those, but there's so much good throughout that it can still be enjoyed on some level. And a lot of that comes from what people were saying was going to be the worst part of the film, Ben Affleck, or the Batfleck. Ben Affleck is still an incredible Batman. He just truly feels like a dark and twisted version of the character in the comic books put directly on the big screen. This version of the character is fascinating because it's inspired a lot by Frank Miller's The Dark Knight Returns and has elements from that comic book. but with many changes that makes it distinct and captivating. This Batman had been fighting crime for 2 decades and never stopped fighting. He had been fighting for such a long time that he's starting to view Batman differently than when he first started his crusade. To him, it's viewed as a lost cause and past his glory days. He had rules, he had ideals, a code. He's changed over time to something far more villainous than good. Even Alfred points out how much he's changed and gotten even crueler with time. There was a time when Batman's ethics of no guns and no killing was his gold standard. Now he's nearing the end of his career and just wants to get his missions done by any means necessary. The humanity that Batman once had is slowly slipping away throughout the story, and I think it's a fascinating deep dive into Bruce's mind. Superman views the negatives that Bruce cannot see due to his jadedness with time, which I guess we should probably discuss the most controversial part of this film, and that's Batman's no-kill rule.
Believe me, I'll do it!
I believe you.
While I do prefer a Batman who doesn't kill, I can say that it doesn't bother me as much nowadays with this interpretation of the character. It fits with the Fallen from Grace version of the character, and it's been done in multiple films before, by the way. Even in Nolan's beloved Dark Knight trilogy, I mean, have we forgotten about Harvey Dent? He straight up murdered him.
I would never take the life of another, for I am Batman, look out! The Dark Knight.
The conversation of Superman. While I would have liked to seen a more optimistic and hopeful version of Superman on the screen after the setup in Man of Steel, it does ask interesting questions on how the world would react to a Superman figure existing in the real world. In real life, the world probably wouldn't be crazy of the idea of someone with that great power existing within our society. Should we trust someone who could potentially destroy everything if he chose to do so? Is he making choices in the world's best interest or servitude to himself? Should he act by himself? This film gives great questions for the character of Superman, even great questions about Batman. Is he really someone we should be rooting for, or something acting outside of the law that's lost its mind? The first part of the film feels very political thriller-ish, and I admire the film for taking such a bold direction. The moving pieces. I also was surprised at just how much I enjoyed elements of the setup to the clash of the two heroes. Batman's motivation made sense from the opening scene of the movie. Superman's motivation was entirely rooted in Batman's downfall from grace, how he was becoming the very element that he battles every night. I even like how in the nightmare sequence, though critiqued for being very Mad Maxy, furthers the fears of Superman turning on the world and how he must be destroyed. I even like how the story didn't feel like Wonder Woman was really shoehorned in. She was woven into the plot naturally for the most part, and gave great interactions between Bruce and Diana. The action. This film gives great action sequences that still hold up to this day. The Batmobile chase was a phenomenal display of speed and power that the iconic car has, seemingly unstoppable until encountering Superman. The warehouse sequence is the greatest comic book action sequence involving Batman I have ever seen, and I still find myself replaying it in the background while I'm working on editing videos. It has everything you could want from a Batman action sequence on screen. Grappling hooks, batarangs, bombs, Arkham-style combat, brutality, it's literal perfection. Even a clash between Batman and Superman has many great moments that feel ripped out of a comic book page. Especially with the cinematography, Wonder Woman's action sequences, while minor, were also fantastic throughout. While I can see the positives to this film, and there are many great elements, there are also elements that I wasn't super crazy about and didn't work then and still don't work now. Superman / Henry Cavill. Let me start off with saying that I love Henry Cavill as the character of Superman. If it wasn't for him, I would never have liked the character and would never have started reading his comic books. I connected with him on an emotional level I never had before with the character when Man of Steel released. I still really like Man of Steel to this day, but the biggest mistake was its continuation of his story in this film after an excellent setup in the prior film. The character went from an unsure of himself, doubtful, unoptimistic portrayal to the exact same thing in the next film. Doesn't feel like a natural continuation of the character that should have happened and was killed off before truly becoming the symbol of hope that he needs to be. It was a very misguided misstep of direction for the character that was a massive mistake from Zack Snyder and Warner Brothers alike. Felt as if they were more interested in the imagery of the character than continuing the direction of a proper Superman. The script for him also felt very stilted and wooden compared to his prior performance in Man of Steel, and often made him seem like a far less interesting character than many others around him in the film. I really felt like this really did Henry Cavill a disservice in this one. While great in Man of Steel, he felt very wooden and emotionless in this one, and in a very bad way. Lex Luthor, or should I say Jesse Eisenberg. I understood his plan in this movie. I understood his whole motivation as well. What I can't understand is the direction for this character. What were they thinking? You're setting up a future DC universe, and your Lex Luthor is more of a Joker than the actual Joker in these movies? This was a complete misstep of direction, which was by far the worst part of the film. Just watch a clip reel and you'll understand.
Fight, fight, fight! Martha, Martha, Martha. Now run! The bat. Hello? I'll learn. Ding dong. Ding 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 ding. Ding 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 ding.
Save Martha. This by far was the most controversial scene in the entire movie and was hated amongst fans and critics alike. I personally think if the sequence was handled better, it could have been a more emotional and smart part of the film. Superman, this entire film, was viewed as an unrelatable alien and a force to be eliminated by Batman. He had dehumanized the character, and this moment was meant to humanize him in his eyes with the fact that he also had a mother who had the same name as one of the parents that he obsesses about every moment of his life. He was going to truly become the very force that he battles against, someone killing another innocent person due to his own personal decision. It's a moment that on paper sounds cool, but how the film handled it and how terribly rushed it felt, it just didn't feel like a moment that was necessarily earned. And if rewritten with Batman having a no-kill role and him trying to make an exception with Superman and then realizing that he was going to very well become the very thing that he's fighting against, could have been an amazing sequence. But Warner Brothers, what were you doing? And oh god, Doomsday. What was this Michael Bay Ninja Turtle ripoff doing in this film? Again, incredibly rushed, leading to a very uninteresting finale, though having highlights throughout, was incredibly unnecessary and rushed a death that was unneeded. The death of Superman should feel like something that was earned, not just thrown in because you could throw it in. And we hadn't even gotten him as the true version of Superman before y'all kill him off with Doomsday. Even the design that they had in the film was a far less interesting design than the comic books, and many of the concept images that were also almost going to appear in the film. Originally, the side plot of the main man in the wheelchair, who was hurt at the beginning of the film, who hated Superman, was going to become Metallo. That's a way better villain setup and motivation than just shoehorning Doomsday in for a quick Trinity setup as soon as possible. But instead, we got whatever this thing is, in conclusion, Batman vs. Superman has a lot of issues and some character issues. It was a mistake to include Doomsday. It was a mistake to include Doomsday this early. It was also a mistake to basically kill off major characters in the DC universe before it begins, like Jimmy Olsen, Mercy, Superman, Dick Grayson, and many others, as well as having a Lex Luthor who didn't resonate with your audiences in a way they were hoping for. Rushing movies that should have taken their time but just wanted to catch up with Marvel. However, for all the bad that's in this film, there's a lot of good that balances it out. Ben Affleck as Batman is still an incredible piece to the movie, and all of his sequences are the highlight. Diana Prince is an incredible mic drop who earned an applause in the audience to the screening that I attended at the time. I also loved a lot of the story elements of the confrontation between the two heroes and how the film points the finger at the negatives of both of the heroes. The action is fantastic, the imagery is just iconic. I think the reason this film is as hated as it is because of the expectation. A film about the arguably most beloved characters in the world was always going to have unrealistic levels of hype, and the negatives were always going to be highlighted. I implore you to look at the positives in this film that are throughout, and many things that at the time, and still to this day, even with the Ultimate Edition, are very much overlooked. Look at it through a different lens of not trying to go in trying to see the issues, but even though the issues exist, try and go in and see the positives. And I can tell you right now, I went in checking out this film for positives, and there was a lot. And I didn't believe it was a bad film back then, and I still don't think it's a bad film now. There's bad elements, but I think that it's just a very misguided film.